Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VC I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. We've got a fun episode for you today talking about business inclusion and the opportunity on a global scale for everybody to have the chance to both invest and to fundraise. What does that mean for you as an entrepreneur, wherever you may be in the world? What does it mean for you as an investor, again, anywhere in the world, or looking to invest in those great companies and ideas that may never see the front page of TechCrunch, but are still great ideas? Where are those opportunities? What does this all mean? We're going to talk about that, and we're going to break it all down for you here on VCTV. But first, make sure you check us out on latoken.com. Subscribe if you haven't already, like the episode, and share it with the world. All of your friends need to see this episode along with our great co-host today, who will be joining me in just a moment. Also, the comment box is open. We want to hear from you. Say hi, where you're at in the world, give us a shout out, throw in any questions. I'll do my best to ask them in real time. If not, we're all available online on social media, which we'll give shout outs to at the end of the episode. Lastly, big thank you to the Token team and to Maria for making today's episode possible. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's go ahead and jump in and talk about business inclusion in investing and fundraising. But first, let's introduce my co-hosts. Brett, welcome back to the show. A little intro, a little background.
Yep, Brett Noyes, CEO at Davis Reed Advisory. We advise a series of different family offices and funds on early stage investments. As a background, I come from as it pertains to this topic, I come from a small business background. Both my father and father-in-law own small businesses. So I've grown up on that side of the world and eventually kind of trickled into the venture side, actually starting with the startup weekends and the community kind of organization movement, and kind of moving my way up the chain, eventually working for some top angels and investors in Silicon Valley.
Thank you, Brett. Next up, Gary, welcome back to the show. A little intro and a little background for everybody.
Yeah, great to be here. My name's Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, co-founder, and president of GSD Venture Studios, Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio. I've done 17 companies. I was involved in the original management team of Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded a little over 5 years ago. We love AI and quantum. AI is the new electricity, and quantum computers are going to change everything. So I'm very interested in the topic today, business inclusion, and look forward to the panel discussion. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you as well, Gary. Last but not least, Dr. Shakob, welcome back to the show as well. A little intro, a little background for everybody. And you're on mute.
Pleasure.
There you go. Sorry.
It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to be accompanied by such wonderful co-hosts and hosts. I'm Dr. Shrikant Pathasarathi. I'm a legal advisor, and I work with family offices in structuring their deals. And my focus has been on the emerging market side, and which has been primarily ASEAN and Eastern Europe and so on and so forth. So looking forward to the discussion on inclusivity today.
Wonderful. Excited to have all three of you on today's panel, really just to provide three very different perspectives and some overlap as well. I mean, this is an important topic. We were talking about it pre-show on kind of what it all means and being able to give the chances for everybody and anybody to not only start a business, but also to invest in businesses and to fundraise as well. Now, whether you have a viable business idea or business itself is different, but giving those opportunities to everybody, how can we help make that happen? But also would love to hear from each of you what's happening in the world as this has all changed, as the landscape of starting a business, as fundraising for a business has changed with so many new options on a global scale that almost anybody could get started immediately. Brett, let's kick it off with you. What are you seeing in general happening around providing that additional level of inclusion when starting a business or fundraising?
Well, one thing I was kind of reading through on some kind of a Twitter chain today was kind of interesting. Obviously, a lot of things have happened and changed through COVID. One thing that I've seen is people are pretty excited about the idea of not having to travel to Silicon Valley to raise capital. So I think we're starting to see I mean, I feel like it's early and it's, I mean, sorry to be not concise on this, but I see it from both sides, right? So I think the opportunity to get in front of investors and for startups from around the nation and around the world has like, the world's got, I mean, like the access has got more democratized, and maybe Gary can kind of add on that, his thoughts on that. At the same time, I think that ultimately it comes down to relationships, and that's still very important. So last year we ran an investor syndicate, and we didn't struggle to find deal flow, and we didn't struggle to put our companies in front of other VCs, but we really struggled to build relationships with people that we had never met in person. So I feel like we're kind of in this weird things are changing, but they're not changing rapidly, right? At the end of the day, investment in business building is really all about relationships, and it's just really different when we turn it into a digital world.
I think that's a great point. I mean, the digital world part in particular is what has changed and forced a lot of this as well. I mean, you can start a business with almost really just an idea at this point, and there's plenty of APIs, no code solutions, 1, 2, 3 click deployments for applications, to then getting started in social media, and you've got all the e-commerce solutions.
Add on to that a little bit, though, that thought before you move on. It's like the lean start movement where I kind of got into this whole world. It's like it really changed how you launched companies. And at the beginning, it was really about getting something out there as quick as possible. But since then, in the last 10 years, the products that people put out are like very amazing. UI has got to be great. And I feel like it's easy to kind of launch and kind of prototype. And like there's a lot of tools that have made that easier. And you can really, demonstrate what you want to build. But both from an investor side and from a customer side, people expect great product. Like shipping crappy product, I don't think is a method that works anymore.
Well, and just to clarify, we're talking about one type of product as well. I mean, there's many different products you can create, right? I mean, we saw the rise of Etsy and Shopify during 2020, and just the boom of marketplaces in general. And again, whatever you want to build, we're all makers and creators in some way. There's opportunity to create a product of any type with as well. So with that being said, Gary, I want to come down to you. Same question to Brett, and also continuing on his points.
Yeah, I mean, the situation, we always say it, is that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities aren't. Mm-hmm. And the whole idea is to really go out and look for those opportunities. And you're right, Kyle, the digital transformation that we've gone through over the last year. Remember, it was said, McKinsey said that 93% of the companies were going through a digital transformation. Well, we had to really adapt starting a little more than a year ago. Seems a lot longer than that already. But we've had to go down through and really adapt. And what has happened is really opened up opportunities all over the world. So, prior to a year ago, we weren't really dealing in places like Africa that much. But at the same time, now you can get to those companies, the travel, you really optimize the opportunity. It really gives you a chance to be able to present, to be able to get the word out in a much easier fashion, and to be able to access it. A year ago, it was really difficult for VCs or investors to really want to deal with companies without seeing them in person. But that has really changed because they've had mandates and they need to move forward. So we're seeing that this is, the pandemic has really allowed us to have an opportunity to move faster than we ever thought possible. So it's an exciting time. It's not over. I mean, we're in the beginning of it, but at the same time, at least we've taken a quantum leap forward and started down the path. So I'm really excited about it. And I know you were going to like the quantum leap forward thing. When I said it, I said, Kyle's going to jump on it right away.
There you go. So talk to us about quantum for a moment. I mean, quantum, there's only a handful of quantum computers that we know of. I'll just add that asterisk. How does that world open up for everybody? Right now, it feels like it's still very limited access, very limited opportunity. How can we see the world of quantum and AI really get democratized to everybody, so everyone has a chance to build or invest in it?
Well, I mean, the situation is, look in Nigeria. Just came back from a trip to Nigeria, and they have AI Saturdays, right? So part of it is to create groups. So it's create groups around, support groups where you can start to share idea, get companies to be able to get involved in it, get banks, just start involving. Once you start that, then the system starts to develop itself. In terms of quantum, you're going to find quantum computers primarily for the mass public around universities. So go to those universities that have those programs and take a look at it. Get involved with groups there. So you got to get inside of it so that you can look out. And right now is the time. This is the beginning on the quantum side of really a whole revolution that's going to take place over the next 25 years. All kinds of things are going to happen. On the AI side, it's already happened. And the countries, the individuals, the companies that understand how to take advantage of it in a positive way, how to get involved in it, how to research it, how to utilize that information, those AI models. Like, as I say, there's a lot of data around it, 40 zettabytes. Well, it needs to be looked at, it needs to be understood, and also actions need to be taken based on that data. So moving from semi-supervised to unsupervised AI is going to be critically important for our future. We're going to have not smart, but intelligent assistants. So if I was an investor, I would look for places where they are. Where are they? They're in places that, like Egypt, places like Nigeria, places like Singapore. Reach out to those areas, and that's where you find the best opportunities because they're generally untapped. The valuations aren't quite as high. You can come in, and I was going to say scoop up, but partner with some of the most incredible companies in the world to be able to take them global.
Well, that's a great point too. The ability to help take them global, which we're going to come back to in just a moment. Dr. Kanath, coming back to you, a similar question as Brett and Gary. I mean, how do we start to open this up in ways that we haven't, or how does it look today from your perspective as well?
So I see that as a graph, and we have on the x-axis and the y-axis, we've got the geographical diversity, which is we don't have to travel to Silicon Valley, or we don't have to travel to Singapore or any of these places to actually find great startups. But that being said, then there is an inclusion which has to happen on a business level. So a company which is doing food, or which is just preparing home food or homemade food, should be treated equally as compared to the AI and a quantum and so on and so forth. So we have an inclusion problem over there as well. So so the part of the problem has been solved by having very focused funds, and these focused funds have their own preferences in terms of the investments that they make. And then a part of the problem is also solved by the family offices themselves, who do not focus on a particular sector, but rather focus on businesses. So you have solved that problem on that end at least. Now the question, insofar as the geographical merit of a particular company is concerned, lies in the tax benefits, lies in the economic benefits, lies in the talent pool which is available, and that I feel is still a problem that exists. For example, I'm speaking from Bangalore, which is considered to be the Silicon Valley of India. But I move, say, 200 miles away from here, I wouldn't find the same kind of talent that I find in Bangalore. So the online world kind of solves that problem, but still doesn't solve the problem of having a physical connection and the question of tax breaks and so on and so forth. So this is my view insofar as a legal slash tax advisor's point of view.
So speaking of talent and fundraising, so fundraising, quick question for all of you. Right now, it seems like crowdfunding may be the future of fundraising. and in a pretty aggressive way. You've got rolling funds, you have syndicates, you have crowdfunding platforms. These platforms are allowing everybody or anybody to jump on anonymously, provide their capital to a company that they like, they're interested in, whatever it may be, and start investing instantly for as little as $10 up to as much as they would like, depending on the platform. In addition to maybe not necessarily raising venture capital traditionally, as Brett mentioned, people not necessarily wanting or having to travel to Silicon Valley anymore. Is this the future? Is this the future of fundraising, that now anybody with an idea and a viable business, as mentioned as well, that if they want to go to fundraising, they're going to go to crowdfunding first? Or is venture capital being skipped over and we're looking at kind of those pre-seed, seed stages going straight into the crowd to raise from investors on a global scale that may be strategic, may be helpful, et cetera? What are your thoughts, Brett? Let's start with you. Gary, I see you shaking your head, but we're gonna come around. Brett, go.
Why don't we start with Gary? Because I mean,
Gary, go ahead.
I have mixed feelings on this, and I'd love to kind of feed off what other people have to say on the subject.
All right, Brett's gonna sit in the middle. So Gary, I'm gonna start with you. Let's see if you're on the left or the right. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the thing is, we look at what's happening, and it's really the democratization opportunity. Look at these NFTs and the ability to do all kinds of investments, fractional investment. It's really moving downstream. So good, bad, or indifferent, like it or not, it's going to happen. The situation, it goes back to, who's qualified and who should be able to do it. My opinion is anybody that's got the money and wants to do it. And, they should be able to free to choose. Why should there be any kind of a difference? So from my standpoint, it's going to, from my perspective, it's going to happen, and you got to be open to it. The other thing is, don't forget about family offices. They're a lot different than they used to be. They're a lot more aggressive. They're a lot more hands-on. And quite frankly, I love dealing with them. They're just a lot harder to get to. But once you're in, you're in. So getting into those family offices that are supportive. And by the way, they're incredibly interested in artificial intelligence and quantum computing right now. So across the board, from what I see.
So that being said, Gary, before I come over to Brett and team here, talk to us about family offices for a minute. I mean, is that a viable fundraising opportunity for startups right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those family offices, from my own personal perspective, are a lot easier to deal with because it's their money, right? If you ask for my money, right, personally, I'm going to make the evaluation. I'm the one that holds the strings to it. So you're talking about, people that are out there to preserve multi-generational wealth, and they're looking for ways to make their companies, many times that their ancestors have started, more successful. So they're looking for technologies. At the same time, they're excited about, the artificial intelligence and quantum computing, and they're interested how can they apply those type of technologies to their businesses. And that's really where it starts to become interesting. So they're aggressive. The key is, how do you get into them, right? Well, being on VC TV here, you see a number of those family offices. Sometimes they're incognito. You don't know it till you get to really meet with them and talk to them.
You're right, Brett. You're going last. I've decided you've got the most opinion on this one, so I'm going to throw you last. Dr. Shakob, same question. I mean, is crowdfunding the future of fundraising? Is that where people are going to go for their pre-seed or early seed before they go to venture capital, if at all?
So let me don my legal hat over here and say that I'm not quite optimistic about crowdfunding. It may sound fancy, but the question is, come on, following the cue that Gary mentioned, right? When family offices want to take a position, they want to take a big position. They want to take a strategic stake in the company, or possibly a stake where there are certain reports that are coming into them, and so on and so forth. So crowdfunding is not something that they will appreciate, so to speak. They appreciate anonymity. They appreciate smaller groups. They appreciate smaller sizes of smaller bunch to deal with. is what my experience has been with family offices. So I'm combining my answer to your question in terms of family offices as well as crowdfunding. Now, as far as crowdfunding is concerned, the question of valuation comes into picture, the question of shareholding comes into picture, the question of whether it's legally allowed or not comes into picture, and traceability of who has invested, right? For the company, it may sound really nice to actually crowdfund, but in the end, when you have to manage, say, 10 million people who have put in $1 each, it is a humongous paper task to manage it.
Mhm. Brett, split the noise.
Split the noise. So I think when I think about kind of the journey of me, like starting at the community level and running an angel investment group in Eastern Washington, I was in crowdfunding. I think started around, or at least the discussion around it was 2013. I was very, very excited, right, for the fact that like guys like me could finally start to invest in companies and not kind of do it under the table and maybe not legally. I mean, I think it hasn't maybe, I feel like it's been underwhelming. Like it hasn't really reached the potential that I hoped it would. I think it's a good path for some companies, right? And I hope it grows, and I think it's a really good maybe first step or alternative to raising venture capital. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to probably screw up your name, I'll say Dr. P, so I don't totally butcher it, had some good points about, how do you manage the cap table? How do you manage that many investors? Obviously, a lot of the platforms have kind of fixed that, or they sit as the middle person and they manage all of the compliance issues. So I think we're making steps, but I don't think it's got really it hasn't taken off, right? There isn't this enthusiasm around, investing in these companies, and so I think it's underwhelming, but I think it's a good path for some companies, and I do hope it grows. There's a company that we're invested in, and I really honestly thought, 5 or 6 years ago that this company would blow up. It's called the SMBX, and it's doing well, but hasn't blown up. And they've created a crowdfunding platform for small businesses, right? So they want to be the alternative to a bank, because from a startup standpoint or a small business standpoint, it's difficult to just walk in and get a loan day one, right? Unless you mortgage your house, or it's difficult if you don't have the collateral. So they're providing an alternative where people who love the local knife shop or the local brewery, right, can invest in that. And it's I don't know, it's not a mega business, but they're doing meaningful work for these companies and helping them raise that $100,000 to expand or get working capital, and it's by people that really for the most part, at least initially, care about these businesses and want them to continue in their community. So I don't know. I mean, I think my answer is nebulous, but I think it's really it's not the end all be all, and it hasn't blown up, and I don't know that it ever will blow up, but I do think it's a good path for certain companies.
And I think that's the key takeaway is back to what we've talked about previously on VCTV, is doing your own research. As an entrepreneur, you need to figure out if it's right for you. So depending on the type of company and what you're looking to fundraise for, et cetera, it may be absolutely perfect. You may want to go a more strategic option as well, I think is what, in summary, everyone's saying here as well. But opening up the floor here for comments and questions. In terms of business inclusion and fundraising in general, where are some of the biggest opportunities, industry and regional wise, right now that people should be paying attention to? If they're out there thinking about starting a business, they're starting a business and looking for investors or looking to invest in companies, where are the biggest opportunities, industry and regionally? Gary, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, so we all need, the thing is that there's, in terms of inclusion, we work with the Black urban population in the States. We've been actively involved in the Black community for over 14 years. So I think, right here at home, but at the same time, as you know, we're working all over the world. I mean, 20 years ago, I worked in Russia because we saw great opportunity with Russian scientists and engineers, Belarus and Ukraine. Now the situation from my standpoint, let's go to the places. I mean, Bangalore, India has got an incredible amount of opportunities throughout India. You got over 1 billion people. Africa with 1.2 billion people and growing. So the situation is, my suggestion is look for those areas. And, on one side, you create a company, you help get fundraised for a company that is that you're part of, that is in artificial intelligence, that's making a dent in the universe. And there's a plenty of interesting examples. Most recently, there was a company called Flutterwave that's now a unicorn out of Nigeria. But the situation is, find those companies, and at the same time, a lot of other things happen. You fund a company that's a fast growth company, they create job opportunities. So the key is to be able to seed it. I know when we started the first accelerator in Russia, we had to go out and seed it and get people excited and interested. And the way we did it in terms of getting them excited was get people like Bob Dorff and Steve Blank and Guy Kawasaki involved, and use that name brand recognition to drive it. Today, it's a little bit different because of the digital transformation. The startups that are out there, get your message out, right? Get videos, attend events, pitching competitions, get it out there, because every time you meet with a potential investor, they're going to look at, they're going to Google your name and look at who you are and what you've done. So make sure you've got that out there. And right, a friend of mine and partner, David Drang, once told me, he said, you got to be looked at as an industry expert, no matter what it is. So dive into whatever it is and know it and understand it. So it's important. Get your word out. Do speaking engagements. Whatever you need to get the word out, because today is so much different than before, because we can't go to Hobie's, right? And on El Camino Real in Palo Alto, which I normally would go to meet with VCs, you can't do it. You got to make sure they can check you out. So it's a little different. Get out there. The good news is you don't have to spend a lot of money traveling like we did before, right? You got the ability to get the word out, write articles in Medium or wherever, Forbes, but write articles and get the word out so people start to understand who you are. So keep it simple.
Thank you, Gary. Doctor, to you, same question. Industry and region, where should people be focusing?
I have the family offices have been quite consistent in their approach. They have never been, in my opinion at least. I consult the Forbes 100 in India, and in my opinion at least, they have never been hung over a particular industry or a particular sector. Or edutech, which is growing out to be $1 billion industry right now at the moment. So that is a good thing about a family, or a family office. So, but I think what entrepreneurs should be looking out for should be the right business idea and the right business approach, and to establish the connections COVID is a fantastic period to actually establish connections that you wouldn't have imagined that you could connect to. I wrote to a very prominent person. I didn't expect a response. And that prominent person responded with his personal email ID and said that, look, let's have a call. So COVID use COVID to your advantage. So whether it's an industry / sector, I would say I'm putting my money at least in everything which is just taken advantage of the COVID period, or which is taken advantage of the current situation that we're in, and the current online medium that we're communicating with. So it doesn't bar me from investments.
Brett.
Yeah. So obviously, there's lots of opportunities throughout the world. Our focus over the last 5+ years has been on the fintech space and in emerging markets. So, my answer is obviously going to be, I think there's huge opportunity for financial inclusion in emerging markets. We've focused on different regions of Western Africa primarily, and some parts of Latin America. But I think just in general, there's massive opportunity to bring more people into the financial system and make money doing it.
Couldn't agree more. Gentlemen, I want to come around for closing thoughts and where you can be found online. I think there's a lot more to be had on the individual level around different regions and topics and industries. So to the audience, make sure you reach out to all three of our co-hosts today to continue the conversation. But Brett, let's start it with you. Closing thoughts, anything else you'd like to add to those starting a business, making their first investments otherwise, and where can they find you online to continue the conversation?
I think from a guy who started small business, lived in the small business world, and have been in it, tried to break into the good old boys club. I think the reality is it is hard. There are opportunities. I think for us, from an investor standpoint, and I've kind of said these days, we've made a conscious decision, and I think I'd encourage all investors to do this. We, last year kind of partnered with Beta Boom, which is minority focused group, start out LGBT and female founded, to make sure that we were seeing deal flow from a series of different areas, so that we were opening up our eyes to people of different backgrounds, and making sure that we were looking at deals from people that might not have been part of the venture world. So I just encourage investors to really kind of partner with groups, because we all have our blind spots and areas that we have our I'll just say blind spots. So open up your eyes and partner with people that have different views, and it'll really open up your deal flow.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brett. Doctor.
My closing thoughts would be this. This may sound more of a moral advice, but the advice is, again, I'm going to double down on what I said earlier, and complementing what Brett said. No idea is a bad idea. Don't be shy shooting off emails to people that you think are not reachable at all. You will be surprised by the level of reach that you could possibly have through an email or through a LinkedIn connect, and so on and so forth. So never be, pre-COVID, we used to be in a situation where only if we met in person, we used to interact with them. But now we are in a situation where we could shoot off an email, or we could, of course, not pick up the phone and ring them, but at least send off some kind of connection to them. So my closing thoughts would be that do not be shy to discuss your idea. I think that's where the first step of inclusion actually happens. So you can reach me at Dr. Shrikant Patsarthi. Ensure that you get the name right, and I'm with Chakra Venture Partners. I'm available on LinkedIn. Spend half my time over there. Always ready to help.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gary. Close us out.
Yeah, so this is a great time for business inclusion. What we did, I actually put Lamel McMorris, who's on the board member of the NAACP, is on our board. He's been a friend for quite some time, and I just want to make sure we're covered. Just like Brett, you want to go out and make sure you're including. We from our perspective, we do look for a female board of advisors and board of directors to be able to come on. So it's just being active, practicing what you preach. You got to get out there. Listen, there are companies all over the world, and I know with our recent trip to Africa, that people are saying, why did you do it? COVID, all kinds of situations. Well, one is my partner had his vaccines. Two, there's an incredible opportunity, and if you want to get into those opportunities, you got to get in there first. You got to get in there early, and you got to mine them. And by the way, Brett, we have a really good payment company from Nigeria that I'll talk to you about. So it's going in, and it's not for the faint of heart. You got to be out there and like an adventurer to find those companies. But at the same time, we have to make sure that in order to make this world a better place, we better include people and create jobs and opportunities so they can feed their families. Because if not, nothing good's going to happen. But one thing I found, when you go into places like this and people start being happy and generating wealth, everything turns around and it turns into a good thing. And that one company gets three more, right? Because they start to build things. So that's what we need to do. We're going to have 13 billion people, going up from 8 now by the end of this century. We need to make sure that we're making this world a better place. And I'm not saying this lightly. We're practicing what we preach. We actually have given scholarships out, partial scholarships to African startups to be able to help them move forward and raise money, develop their business plan, all kinds of things to help. So get out there, do it, practice what you preach. There are some incredible companies. They just need to, they're like Ferraris in the garage. We need to take them out of the garage. You know, if we're going to sell them, put on the Barrett Jackson auction, get them on the racetrack and run them and help them out, tune them, and let's win some races. You can reach me, Gary Fowler, on LinkedIn. You can reach me on Twitter. I'd love to hear from you, and stay happy, stay healthy, and stay safe.
Thank you very much. And thank you all again for the co-hosting today. Outstanding conversation to our audience. Thank you for tuning in, for all the great comments. Hello to all of you around the world and all of the great questions as well. We love hearing from you. Look forward to hearing more as well. Definitely reach out, as each of our co-hosts mentioned today. Reach out. They love, and including myself, we'd all love to hear from you. Please add context, where you heard us, where you met us, and what you would like to continue the conversation about as well. With that, again, a big thank you for tuning in. Make sure you click subscribe, share, and like today's episode, and check out the archive on latoken.com to hear from today's speakers and all speakers of the VCTV family of investors from around the world. We'll be back here after a short little break with more VCTV, but a big thank you to the Token team and to Maria for making today's episode possible. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we'll see you back here in just a little bit with more VCTV. Take care, everybody.
Everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.